Okay guys, so I want to spend this lecture talking about a couple of really cool formatting options that Excel has. Uh, I'm going to be talking a bit about bold, italics, underlines, copying data, which I think should come first, cutting data, pasting data, and this is a guide that I will be probably having in every lecture of mine so that you know what I'm talking about. We'll be talking about a very important tool, that is Format Painter, and just basic stuff as to how you can make your data look uh, more beautiful. Let's call it, if I can spell beautiful correctly. So let's say I start with some data. I type in name, I type in the age, I type in the address. uh, Now let's say I want to say, and let's say we could call something, let's say uh, weekdays. I'm sure it doesn't make sense in context of name, age, and address, but you'll see the point that I'm trying to make. So let's say I say that the name is John, the age is 20, the address is ABC, and the weekday that probably John was born on was Monday. So if I want this data to appear elsewhere, what I can simply do is that select this data by technically selecting John, clicking on John and dragging my mouse across, pressing Control C, which is a shortcut for copy. That's one way. Number two, you could select this, go to the ribbon and press on copy. So you see you have something that says Control C right here. So you could copy this, and depending on where you want to paste the data, so let's say I want the data to appear right beneath this, so I come and press Control V, and if you see on paste, it gives you the shortcut, which is Control V. I'll be coming to shortkeys in a bit, but let's say I just select paste, so automatically the data that I had in basically my second row was copied here. Now if you see, there is this thing called dancing ants that's circling around the cells. So this technically implies that the data is still in the clipboard, and if I were to paste this again, it would paste here again. So that's one way of understanding it. Now let's say that I want to remove the entire data set. Let's say I want to remove the entire 3 rows of data. I want to cut it and I want it to appear elsewhere, so I just select this and I press Control X, which you can see here, or I just cut the data, and let's say I want to paste the data here. So like we said, the shortcut for pasting your data is Control V, so I just press Control plus V. So okay, so you don't press plus, you just select, you just keep one finger on Control and one finger on V. And apologies if I'm really talking about the basics, but I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So I press paste and a latch, so your data moves from here to here and all these cells are now blank. So that's basically cutting, copying and pasting your data. So this is something that we just covered. Now let's say that I want to highlight some data. So for highlighting, if you look here, so we've done this highlighting, you have a bucket that's made here, which is called fill color. Let's just make sure that this appears. So fill color, and it says color the background of cells to make them stand out. So here I can decide the sort of color that I want, and automatically if you see, when I'm moving the cursor over these colors, it's automatically showing in these cells as to what the cell would look like. So let's say I want to go for a green because this is something that we've covered. So I press this, automatically my cell is colored green. Now there's something that I really want to highlight. So let's just bring this data back here now. So I select this, Control and X, which is for cut, and I come here and Control and V, which is for paste. Or either way if you want to use these options, if you're more comfortable, that's totally your call. So now if you look at this, I want to make this data stand out. I want to make sure that these are headings and they stand out, and they get the kind of attention that they deserve. So I select these cells And if you see here, there are three different options: B, I, and U. Now I'll come to these in a moment. Let's start off with B. So this says Control B, make your text bold. So if I press B, you'll see that name, age, address, and weekdays have become bold in their formatting. Similarly, if I press I, which is italic, your text would now be italicized, and similarly if I press U, my text would now be underlined. Okay, so I'll talk about what I did here, how I made this appear a bit bigger, I would say. So technically, when I select the cell, it shows you that it's been bolded, it's been italicized, and it's been underlined. If I press on B again, you see the bold is removed. If I press on I, the italicized is removed, and if I press on U, the underlining is removed. So three very important concepts can really make your data stand out. Now I'm just gonna select the color again, just to indicate that we've covered this part. Now let's say that I don't want to apply the functionality or the formatting that I've used on one cell again and again to all the different cells. So let's say if I want to have the same formatting, I want to have a bold, an italic, and an underline to another cell. Rather than selecting the cell, for instance, let's say I select beautiful, I press bold, I press italic, and then I press underline. Rather than do this, a shortcut that Excel has invented, and I think it's really cool, is that let's say if I want this formatting on a different cell, I come to the cell, I click on the cell, and I select Format Painter. Now what this does is that if you see here, a brush is appearing on my cursor. I go to a cell that I want to change, and I just click on that cell. So if you see, what happened here was that the name formatting has been automatically applied to this particular cell. And let's say I can do this again. I again select Format Painter, and let's say I select Format Painter. So you see the formatting that was on name has been applied here. And let's say if you want to highlight something according to this, similar to this, in fact just the same, I select this, I click on Format Painter, and I click on John. So you see the formatting that was inherent in this cell is now available here. A really cool shortcut that I recently found out was that if I want to apply the same formatting to multiple cells, rather than selecting Format Painter over and over again, I can probably select a cell, click on Format Painter twice, and then start clicking the cells that I want to have the respective formatting in. So this, as you can see, would save me a lot of time rather than going to and fro between every single thing that I'm doing. So we've covered all these different aspects. Just a quick thing on how to make your data look beautiful. So first of all, if you see, there's two A's, and before this, if you look at this, if you select your data, Calibrizer. So this is one font that you can use. You can look at different sorts of fonts that you have, and accordingly you will see that your data, the way that it's written, is being changed. Just to make sure that text is visible, I'll be selecting Arial Black. You can do this, or if you know a font by heart, you could just come in and type the name of the font, and it would be automatically updating your data. At the same time, I can increase or decrease the size of my text. Let's just keep it at 14, and I think using this A technically does the same job. The bigger A increases the size of your data, the smaller A decreases the size of your font. So keeping this at 12. Now one more thing that probably we didn't talk about is this, the bottom border or the bordering options. So if I want to make these cells come inside a border, I will come here and select the kind of border that I want. So let's say I want all borders on my cells. I select all borders, and automatically you see that there are now borders across, in fact outside my cells. Let's say if I want to border this region, again I select this, or let's say if I want a thick outside border, let's say here I come here and I select thick outside border, so it gives me a border. Now one really I would say an irritating thing at times is that there are times when your data is not properly showing up. Let's say you have address which looks fine, you have age which probably looks fine at the moment, but weekdays it's probably going out a bit too much. So what do you do here? So one option that you have to increase the size of your rows and columns is to just come between two columns, and you'll see that your cursor is going to change, and it's going to be two arrows pointing in an opposite direction, in the opposite direction, and you basically select that, and then you can technically move the size of your column. So if you see, I selected the thing, I just pressed on this, and then I can accommodate and adjust the size of my column accordingly. Similarly, when it comes to rows, I come in between the rows, and then I increase or decrease the size of my rows accordingly. That is one way of doing it. Another cool way, and I think a much more efficient way, would be to select all your data, come to format, and this is something that we'll be discussing in a bit, but just to give you a highlight of this, come to format and say auto fit row height. So if you see, my height, the height of my cells has been adjusted according to the data that I have. Similarly, I can also do auto fit column width. So based on the data set that I have, my row width will be adjusted accordingly. So these are just some ways that Excel makes your data beautiful. Now, just because I wanted this to stand out, I'll probably remove the paint here. So now you see that your data looks much more neat, much more decent. Just one last thing I will be covering before I wrap this section up is that one other way that you can manipulate, or in fact better represent your data, is to move the alignment. So let's say you can move it towards the middle. You could align it, have a left alignment or right alignment, a middle center alignment, depending on the kind of data that you have. And let's say if you want to move this towards the top, you could select top alignment, you could select a bottom alignment. I would probably go for a middle alignment, and this is basically how you adapt and adjust your data in Excel. So I'll see you in the next lecture. We'll be talking about a couple of really cool things. So I will see you in the next lecture. Thank you.